Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Probably evening now when you're watching this. I'm Zach Martin, and I'm going to teach you how to use SSH. SSH stands for Secure Shell, which is the most common secure way to remotely access a network device. It is supported across all operating systems, so it makes it a favorite tool among network administrators. This versatility, paired with its support of encryption protocols and key pairing, make it a must have for any aspiring admins. In the upcoming slides, I know it's going to be super confusing, but Professor Kilgore's got me hooked on the idea of all usernames being John. So bear with me and pay attention to the host names. I only have one user on each device, so the host names are really the identifier there. And as I start to use the SSH, I have outlined the main server command line with red, and the client device is outlined in blue. And you'll see that there's a lot more red because I tried to not use the other computer if I didn't have to. And really, I think there's only one instance where I needed to use the blue. So it's a very powerful protocol and it's useful. The versatility of SSH, and specifically the functionality of OpenSSH, have made it a favorite among Linux users. So much so that even Microsoft uses it by default. I'm not sure what's going on in the Apple world, and frankly, I don't want to know. I'm just kidding. If you give me a MacBook, I'll totally check it out. Anyway, I went to install OpenSSH just to be sure. And as you can see in the windows here, it's already there. So we've got SSH, but I'm still missing one critical piece of information, my IP address. This method's a little text heavy, and there's a way to use grep and filter out other information and just get the IP itself, but I can't remember all the commands. But I'll never forget to use how to use ifconfig. So I ran this on my server because I just recently set it up, the IP on both of them. I just couldn't remember which one was which. The server's going to be 17, client device is 21. So now that I know where to go, it's time to go knocking on the door. Whoops. Knocking at the right door with the wrong name cost me like 2 weeks of this project. I got bogged down and spent a few hours at YouTube University. Shout out to Learn Linux TV. Fantastic resource. Can't recommend it enough. And after a couple of days of cooling off, I finally got where I was going. Well, now that I'm in there, uh, what do I do? Well, the first thing that came to my mind was to install Nmap, which is a powerful networking protocol. Use that ZenMap as the graphical interface, but it's very functional in the command line as well. Not really the most necessary tool on a tertiary machine on my network, but it was the only thing I could think of that I knew would be in the repository, and it's easy to spell. And as you can see, my client machine did not have it by default. I used my remote credentials to get into Nmap, and a minute later, I decided to go over to the client device just to be sure it was installed. As with all the blue ones, could have definitely just been done on the server, but I wanted to physically access it and see it to believe it myself. It's really cool knowing that I could administer my grandma's computer from 1,000 miles away. Speaking of administration, that's what this protocol is really used for. Once you get into the device, cybersecurity is critical. This is achieved through obfuscation in my example. I was using Nano to log into the shown directory, and while there, I can open the config file, and in that is where you can really fine tune every setting on the machine. There are way more services that can be performed using SSH and config alterations. However, due to time constraints, I declared them beyond the scope of this presentation and my knowledge. Every configuration changed is going to have its consequences. Once I logged out, I couldn't get back in using the new port number. I'm not sure if it would have worked on if I tried to log back in just using regular port 22. It might have, just because I hadn't actually updated the settings yet. Prior to that, though, because I was using a random port based on my old area code, I just assumed the firewall was doing its job. Nope. Apparently the firewall took its day off, So my second thought was, I don't know, maybe I just need to reload it. Sure enough, that did the trick. And while this was a pretty easy set of hoops to jump through, I shudder to think of the consequences if I didn't have physical access to this device. And if port 22 didn't work. So I thank you all for your time and attention. Now we can all hack each other, and that's why it's paramount that I establish a key set for my devices as soon as possible. And I'm open to any other ideas for remote administration. I really just dipped my toe into this. So just gotta say bye for now.